Digitalization is increasing its pace and offering more and more opportunities, but on the other hand, it poses challenges because we can't afford digitalization without making it secure. So the digitalization and cybersecurity are two sides of the same coin. And the pandemic has made it more evident than ever because we have all resorted more to technology, and that has tremendously exposed the surface of attacks. So we have had major incidents recently, such as SolarWinds and Colonial Pipeline, just to name a few. So the first question I would like to address is how is Italy facing this challenge, and how is it building its cybersecurity architecture? And which room in this building is occupied by the Ministry for Foreign Affairs? Now, the first relevant national institution we have to mention is the Cybersecurity Cell, il Nucleo di Sicurezza Cibernetica, that was established in 2017, and it is embedded in the Prime Minister's office. It is chaired by the Deputy Director General responsible for cyber of our Security Intelligence Department, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs participates into this body like other relevant administrations. Among the tasks of this body, we can mention the liaison and coordination functions in the planning and operational planning of response to crisis situations, and evaluation and coordination of interministerial exercises and national participation in international exercises. Now, apart from this body that is standing there since the last 5 years, we have recently adopted the national perimeter of cybersecurity. And this is a piece of information I really wanted you to have. This legislation was adopted in November 2019, and it defines the subjects that ensure essential functions of the state or operate services that are essential for civil, social, economic, and national activities. So being included in the perimeter bears duties and responsibility, both in ordinary activity and also, of course, in times of crisis. Operators, and this is something very relevant, included in the perimeter, can be both public and also private. The perimeter also merged some aspects of previous existing legislation on foreign direct investments, so-called Golden Power, and it has established a Center for National Evaluation or Certification. And it provides rules for accreditation for tech labs, tech private labs, for screening of equipment, and ICT procurement legislation. So we are currently still implementing our perimeter, and actually a testing period will begin on the 23rd of June. However, we think we have already accomplished that we acknowledge and we empower the role of private sector in our national cybersecurity and defense. And I believe that some other panelists today might be able to provide additional insights into this aspect. The perimeter also has defined standards and a flexible and open framework that is able to adapt to new tech developments. And this is something I really would like to stress, because one of the defining features of our age, I think, it's the speed at which technology develops. So any architecture we build must be designed as to be as sort of open as to be able to accommodate future developments, because the moment we will build a house, it might need a renovation soon. So this is an important point. Now, after this quick overview of our national architecture, I will turn into my core business, which is the international aspects of cybersecurity. I would like to define and sort of describe international relations like a sponge. They absorb relevant global or bilateral issues at any given time and release them back through diplomacy, which is the preferred form of interaction among states. Now, it is obvious that the pervasiveness of tech developments have had an impact on relations among states, since a new space has been designed and states are naturally and fortunately looking for a way to peacefully living in it, to protect their citizens and their national interests. Hence, the rise of a new branch of diplomacy, which is cyber diplomacy. Italy, with its structure, came relatively late or relatively early, depending on your point of observation. And because, in fact, the creation of the cyber department that I'm chairing within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs dates back to last year only. It's a bit late, perhaps, compared to the US or to the UK, but not so late compared to many other EU partners, for instance. And we are tasked with coordination of cyber issues in the diplomatic arena. And there we interpret our role in a very, let me call it very orthodox sense. No surprises there. Our constitution says that Italy rejects war as an instrument of aggression against the freedom of other peoples and as a means for the settlement of international disputes. Therefore, you will see from this that the promotion of our national interests goes hand in hand with our commitment to multilateralism, to international peace, security, and cooperation. So in doing so, we contribute, of course, to consolidating the position of the EU and other allies to strengthen our bilateral relations with partners. And we're trying to make cyberspace and hence the global scene a bit more secure while keeping it open and respectful of human rights. I believe also that these principles are fully shared by a country like South Africa, that a partner that is very important on the African continent and on its sub-regional and regional organizations, and I name one for all, which is the African Union. Currently, we are working a lot within the EU because we have a lot of work to do to consolidate instruments like the NIS Directive number 2 or the cyber diplomacy toolbox, for instance, but our work looks also at the wider picture. We are very keen to establish new bonds in the context also of cyber capacity building, where it's important, which is a very important topic that is, gaining momentum every day because it's important to build the cyber security and the digital divide worldwide. So these are the most cooperative aspects of cybersecurity in international relations. However, we shouldn't forget that cyberspace bears also a high potential for controversy. It's a field for competition, for the technological edge, and above all, a domain where the existing international legal order could be subverted. So, on the other hand, bilateralization of cyber diplomacy only serves those countries that are already powerful and can influence by themselves the agenda. Whereas we believe that multilateralism rests on inclusiveness and it gives an opportunity to every state for their voices to be heard. In a way, it is the bedrock of democratic systems. So we are very committed to working in the UN. And although the Secretary General recently, the very Secretary General of the United Nations recently complained that the UN has no teeth and has no power to impose anything on states to do what it has to do to avoid major conflicts or accelerate action to protect and restore the environment, we still believe that there are enormous potential that goes unseen in multilateral diplomacy. Because in fact, think about it, successes and results of multilateral diplomacy goes often unnoticed, and you notice diplomacy most often only when it fails. And that is this silent work that is sometimes successful, most often happens within multilateral preventive work. So what we have recently accomplished, for instance, and this happened also with South Africa, among all other nations, with the United Nations open-ended working group at the General Assembly of the United Nations, speaks volume about this aspect. The OEWG has agreed in March on a document by consensus that will remain a cornerstone for any future discussion on cybersecurity at multilateral level. Most importantly, the OEWG and the subsequent GGE report have reaffirmed the existing normative framework, notably the applicability of international law to cyberspace. And Italy will continue to engage in this multilateral work, and while doing so has co-sponsored a new initiative aimed at the implementation of this existing cyber framework, the so-called Program of Action on International Security Aspects of Information and Communication Technologies and Responsible Behavior of States in their use of ICTs, which is an initiative that has already gathered the support of 53 countries. And we hope that South Africa will be able to join us soon, as we believe it should become the principal platform for cyber capacity building activities, implementation of confidence building measures, and a space for permanent dialogue with the private sector. So there is scope to be optimistic in our shared quest to maintain secure and reliable digital tools and connectivity, and to promote and protect a global, stable, secure, free, and open cyberspace. I thank you very much for your attention.